And now getting kind of back to football talk, I know that, Tony, you had some questions about some of the different managers that Paul has played for and how that's influenced his style as a manager, right?
Yeah, I just, you mentioned some names there, Paul, at the beginning of your career, and you've interacted with Gary Berevin at times too, and played under very different managers. And one of the, I'll ask the second part of the question about that series. But what of all the managers, is there one that stands out that had the biggest impression on you, or did you just take a piece from each one to sort of develop on your own style?
I think you'd have to. I think if you're going to go into management, you'd have to have your own style. I don't think you can copy. You can obviously take bits and pieces from everyone you've worked with, good and bad. I think there's been times when I've worked with managers and I think I'm not sure about that. And I think you remember those things as what, not just only what you would take from them, but what you would try and avoid. I think from a point of view of handling and dealing with players, Nigel Clough was very, stands out a lot because he wanted to know about the players. He was sort of, he'd ask you questions. He was interested in your family and in other things. It wasn't just all football. He wanted to know the player or the person before the player, because that's ultimately what you are. You're a person first, and a footballer, comes after it. And he was very, very big on, he'd have a conversation with you, and he wouldn't mention football, and he'd be talking to you for 10 minutes, and it'd be about, what you've done with the family over the weekend, or where have you been, or what does your dad do, or and he'd want to get to know you as a person, and that's something that stood out for me, and it's always, I've always believed that it was a really good way to find out more about the player and not just be football, because there's times when you need to know a little bit about players and what could be going on, or the fact that you've shown an interest makes a player feel that, or I felt he was approachable if you'd ever had any issues, or you needed to tell him something that was away from the game. You felt you could because of what he'd how he'd approached you for different things, and it wasn't just about football. So I'd have to say Cloughie for that reason.
Would you describe yourself, and this is a term that I always find interesting, but when a person is labeled as a player's manager, I always come to struggle with what is that term? I mean, in theory, every manager should be a player manager, but what you described was more of getting to know the person as opposed to just leaving it just to football. Would that be more of what you consider a player's manager?
Yeah, well, everyone will have their own opinion and their own answer and different answer. But I just felt it was a really good way of connecting with the players. The way Cloughie was, it was, obviously he was very knowledgeable about football, and obviously a lot of his traits had been from the way his dad was, and what he'd felt worked. But he was very much a family person, and he appreciated that side of it. And obviously he understood that the person who he was dealing with, who was ultimately going to turn out for him and represent him on a Saturday or a Tuesday night, whatever it was, that if they had anything going on with their family, with their personal life, it was a connection that he had, which enabled players to approach him. But not only that, it was an understanding element. Now, at the time, my wife, she'd unfortunately had a miscarriage, and we'd had a game on the Friday, and it was the Friday that it happened, and I was like, no, I'm going to play. I need to get out the house, blah, blah, blah. And we had no children at the time, and he phoned me, and he said, don't you dare turn up. You stay with her, don't you dare. And it was obviously a big game, and And my wife she was like, you know, her mum was there and she was like, just go and play football, get your mind off it. And he was like, don't you dare turn up. And the very next morning, there was a knock on the door and I was thinking, who's this? It was a Saturday morning and it was a massive big bouquet of flowers from Burton Albion. And he just had that touch. But after the game, he phoned me and we'd won, fortunately. And he said, you know, the lads have put a shift in for him. We've got a good win, but your main concern is your wife, and you make sure you're with her. And you know, I'll speak to you again tomorrow. And he phoned me every day. And every day he asked me how my wife was. Every single day he phoned me to ask how she was. And I just thought that was, you know, he didn't have to do that. He'd already asked the question, and I wouldn't have thought any less of him for not asking the question, you know, because he was a football manager. But the fact he was so adamant that I was with her, so adamant that he was phoning me all the time to check on things and all that, and it just, you know, it was a really good thing for him to do that he didn't have to do, but he thought nothing of it because that's how he was as a person. And I'm really pleased he went on to he's gone on to have a really good management career.
And that's sort of something you don't hear enough of. That sort of stories in football. I mean, you hear all of other things going on, and that leads me to you know, some of that documentary series that was filmed back in the mid to about 2005 and 2006. There was showed a lot of colorful language, so to speak, in the changing rooms. That style of management that I saw, does that still exist, or is that sort of gone by the wayside? Of the yelling, the screaming, and the profanity kind of thing.
I think it's probably less than it was, but you know, I'd be pretty certain it still goes on. You know, there's a lot of frustration in football management, and the biggest reason isn't because, you know, someone's made a mistake. The frustration lies that you, as the manager, can't do what you used to be able to do, and I think that's where a lot of it comes from. But you know, I don't think it's as big or as ugly as what that show was. That's for sure. But I still think it goes on. I still think there's a few bags and buckets and drinks bottles get booted around dressing rooms. I'm not sure about teapots because I think they've been replaced with energy drinks now. But you know, I still think there's a bit of choice language gets said at half time and a few raised voices. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the plastic bottles of Lucasade bounce around a lot better than teapot used to.
Yeah, they do, definitely, and you don't hurt your toe as much.
It really, one thing I just wanted to kind of come back to is what you had said about when a manager treats players as a human being and not just as another player, and showing concern for your family, and you know, like you said, just going over it above to ask you how your wife is doing, things like that. And I can imagine that that's the type of thing where you really have taken that to your management style and connect to your players on that level. And that's why a guy like Scott, you know, had a new lease on life come into play for you this year.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think so. And you know, I say to the lads all the time, and you know, whatever age it was, I'll always try and help them. And you know, I mightn't always get it right in what I do, but I'll always try and help them, and I'd always have to, you know, the basis of my decisions is doing right by them. And sometimes, you know, looking back on it, I've, you know, probably over thought what I've done for the players, and instead of just dealing with the whole footballing side of it. But I think like the way you know, I put it across before, I think if you understand the player, the person before the player, I think you're halfway there into getting the best out of them, because you know what buttons to push, and it's important that you have that connection with the player, I feel, because ultimately I think you know, I think there's very few dictators now in football in terms of, you know, do as I say type managers, and I think you do need that empathy towards players, especially the younger generation of players coming through. And one thing I always say is, I'll be your biggest promoter. I'll be the person who endorses you more than anyone. If you're coming to me and you're playing well, there'll be people who I speak to will be getting told you're playing well. You won't need agents. You won't need anyone promoting you. It'll be me who does it more than anybody. And I think the lads, certainly at Warrington have found that, because we've had numerous league clubs coming down to watch players, to have a look at lads who we brought in, and I think it's the way to be. You shouldn't stop people progressing. It happened to me when I was younger, when I was at Rochdale, and I always vowed never to stop players progressing and going on, because the way football is, especially these days, one move can be life changing, and you can't ever do anything but, or I feel you shouldn't ever do anything but help the players who are playing for you, because it's for me, it's as much about helping players is success as much as it is winning football matches or promotions or trophies. If you can help players get on and move them up the ladder, then it'll come back in rewards for yourself as a manager.
Well, absolutely, because if you're managing players and then they go on and they're successful at a higher league, then that's going to reflect back on your coaching ability. And I think that what you said is a really big thing, where there's so many guys that we've had on the show that have said, if I had never gotten to this team at this time, my career would never have taken off the way that it did. And the last thing you want to do is be the one to hold a guy back from getting to that right team at that right time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we took a young lad who was only playing Sunday league football, a lad called Ben Garrity, and we signed him, and he came in pre-season, not last pre-season, the pre-season before, and he was outstanding. And I said to the chairman, look, let's put him on a contract, let's make sure we look after him. And he was a revelation, and I said to him, listen, you can get yourself an agent, and I put a few his way, I put the one he's with now his way, but I said, but you don't need to panic. If someone comes in for you, it'll be, I'll phone you up, I'll pick you up, I'll take you to the club myself. And Ben Garrity, who is the player I'm talking about, in January, I got a call from Blackpool. There'd been a bit of incest from Fleetwood. I got a call from Blackpool, Ben Mansford, and funnily enough, my first club, if you like, in Blackpool, and they phoned and made an offer for Ben, and I did what I said I'd do, and that was I took him for his medical. I'd done the transfer negotiation, done his contract, and he got a move, and he moved to a League One club. Unfortunately, the season's locked down now, so he hasn't been able to play yet. But that's something I would always try and do is move the players in the right direction and not prevent them. And that's an example of what we, I believe, as a club at Warrington, we're about. We're no pushovers. We're not just going to give people away, but we certainly won't be blocking paths for players. We see it as a successful story about the club as much as anything else, and that's a bit of an example of the way we do things.
That's incredible. I mean, that's exactly the type of stories that we're here to tell, because I mean we just hear so much, like you said, so much negative news or so much news on players that get this $50 million transfer fee and do nothing with it, and we want to be the show that tells about all of the good things that are happening in the grassroots of football, and where folks are playing for the love of the game, and it's not about money, and what you talk about just really personifies everything about the stories that we want to tell here on this show.
Good. Good.
Yeah, and
as I say, go on. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Paul. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just going to say it really is a very important part of the aspect of a non-league club is getting a player, develop them, and then getting the rewards when you pass them on. I mean, the same can be said at Accrington Stanley that set them on their way with Brett Ormerod. So, I mean, it's a key component of life in the lower leagues, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's what you'd have to do to survive. You'd have to go out. You'd have to go to the to wherever you need to go to find the players that nobody knows about and to try and work with them and develop them and basically just giving them a chance. And I think, because there is a lot of players out there, but there's a snobbery in the game. There's a snobbery in football where, there's not too many scouts from higher up the leagues who like to go and stand in the rain on a cold Tuesday night in November and watch Warrington Town v whoever, and but the ones who do get the rewards from it, and that's the difference. That's going the hard yards, I call them. To do your job. We all know at all levels. We all know the players who are coming through. It's beneath those levels. You need to be on your game, and I have a sort of a close friend who's an agent who was head of recruitment at Everton's Academy, and a guy called Martin Waldron. And he has about five fellas who just love the game. They'll just go anywhere to watch a game of football, and obviously avoid Coronation Street and EastEnders. And they go I'll phone them up, or I'll send them a message, where are you going tonight, blah blah blah, and they'll send me I'll get messages back of where they're going, and I'll say, okay, I'll put some tickets on for you, and that's all they want. They just want some tickets. So I'll put some tickets on, and they'll send me back a bit of a brief report on the game with standout players, and send me their thoughts, and like I say, that's what you need to do as a manager. You don't get to watch that many games, but you need to have good people around you who do that, who give you the heads up, and then you go and watch yourself, and then obviously you make your decisions from there. It's the same at all levels, but it doesn't bother me where I have to go and watch football. I'll watch football. I'll watch football, in my back garden or whatever, just to, if it means that I'm doing my job. Ultimately, you're doing your job. If there's someone out there, and and even if there isn't, even if you haven't been tipped off about a player, and you get a night off to what, you go and watch a game, and something will surprise you. If you sat at home watching EastEnders and Coronation Street, you're not going to be surprised, because there's going to be someone fighting. There's going to be someone, women screaming. There's going to be a murder. Someone's going to be buried under a patio. So you're not surprised by them soap operas. But when you go out to watch a game at Runcorn Linnets or Runcorn Town or wherever, Ashton Athletic, you'll pick something up, and there might be someone there who just go, you know what, I'll take a chance on him, and you never know where it ends up. But so I'm a big believer in you have to go out and get your hands dirty to get your rewards, and that's what we try and do as much as we can.
That's fantastic. Yeah. That's just some insight into the type of scouting, because even in a League One team like Accrington with a small budget, that the players often tell us how much time they spend in the film room. And when you're a couple leagues down like Warrington is, there is no game film. We had Lee Attenborough on, who's the manager of Loughborough Dynamo, who plays in the Midlands, and so they're I think the same tier as you guys, but a different division, because they're over in the Midlands. But yeah, he said that a lot of times he's fighting the other manager after the game and saying things like, okay, you played our next opponent 3 weeks ago. Who do I need to look out for? I imagine you're having to do stuff like that sometimes too.
Yeah, you do. You're constantly picking the brains of, you look at your next opponent's previous fixtures, and you get on the phone to someone, and if they're not your cup of tea, then you're a bit reluctant, and you might drop them a text or whatever rather than make the call. But if it's someone you get on with, you'll give them a call and scour Twitter for any highlights of the games that you can see that might just give you that little bit of edge. That you might see a set piece or even something as well, I say small, even something as such as what way the penalty was struck. And that can be the difference. And if you can try and do as much homework as you can, then if it gives you an extra 1%, that could be the difference of 3 points or not. And that's what we try and do. And I know a lot of other managers at the level do the same stuff, but you've got to do it. You've got to do it religiously. It's got to be part. And what I say, it's your job. You've got to do as much as you can to help the players, help yourself, and get the 3 points. And that's what we're in it for at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine something like you said, is say you talk to 3 other managers, find out that your next opponent's penalty taker has gone low and to the right every time, then just being able to tell your goalkeeper that and having him dive the right way could be the difference between a win and a loss.
We do it constantly. We do it constantly. We always, because one thing you can guarantee, especially with social media the way it is, and especially the way smartphones are with video cameras, and everyone's turned into cameramen with the phones, especially at lower league games. If there's a penalty or a free kick, it gets taken because it gives people an opportunity to actually record it. And then it gets put on Twitter, and it gets put on the club's Twitter feed. So you do have ability and facility in terms of Twitter or YouTube or whatever to find these things out. And our keepers made saves off penalties, or we've seen set piece routines that have worked previously, and we've been able to scupper. And we've seen other things where we think, oh well, they look vulnerable there. They don't have a man on the back post. Let's work a corner that goes towards the back post and see can we free someone up with a block. And so it's worked both ways for us. And I think you've got to be relentless in what you're trying to do. And we certainly are. We try our best within our capabilities to get as much info to give to the lads as we can.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, this is just an incredible insight into the workings of this division. Tony, what other questions did you have? Paul, we've already had you on with us for an hour. I hope we're not taking up too much more of your time, but you just have so much that we want to talk to you about. Do you mind if we go a little longer?
No, not a problem at all. Just fire away. As long as I'm not bored and used, that's the main thing.
I'm thinking that we would have turned this into a 2-part episode because you've just got. We haven't even asked you about. I think some of the most interesting questions that Tony had written down. We haven't even gotten to yet.
No, I think this is the fastest hour we've had for a long time, and in an interview with the stories you've been telling and the insights you've been sharing with us. The one thing I wanted to, and this is sort of relates to the town of Warrington, because it's very unusual in a lot of areas in Lancashire, especially where football team is not the main sport in town. And with Warrington, obviously a football league or a rugby league town with the Warrington Wolves. How does that impact on you or your team, or does it sort of come into play being the second, or what might appear to be the second team in the town? Is that an issue, or is that something that you think about?
I think it is an issue. I think it'd be easy to say, oh no, it's not an issue. It's two separate sports, but I think it is an issue because, like you say, there's 200,000 people in Warrington, so it's a big town, and our average gates have rose at a good rate, if you like. I think last season they were on the previous season, or since I came in, they're up about nearly 40%. So we have had a big jump in it, and it goes to show that, you know, there are people out there who want to come and watch. And, you know, in certain games last season towards the end in the playoffs, and when we're going for the league, and, you know, we're trying to get up, we've had big gates of well over 1,000 in league games, and so that's shown we've sort of moved it along quite significantly in terms of who wants to come and watch us. But I think you're always in the shadows of the rugby. When you drive past the ground, you know, and it's a fantastic stadium where they're at, and, you know, the well supported, well documented at a national level. You know, but that's not to say, you know, we're not trying our best to change that. And you know, obviously a promotion would help massively into the Conference North, which we were really unlucky with last season. But, you know, it obviously has an impact. You know, their averages attendances are in the thousands, ours are in the hundreds. You know, so that'll tell you. But, you know, we're growing, and they've had the disappointments as well. So our chairman calls us the noisy neighbours, in terms of where we are. We're the noisy neighbours of the big posh rugby, the big posh house next door. But, you know, we're going to be noisy. We're going to try our best to be noisy and sign. You know, do what the likes of Wigan have done. You know, and being up there and being in the Premier League, and, you know, being as much an attraction to the town as what the rugby was as a football club. And that's, you know, that's the chairman's aim, because he's a Warrington lad, but he follows rugby, but, you know, prefers football. So hopefully we can do it.
Well, when that comes to scheduling, how does Warrington Wolves, are they, say if you play on a Saturday, do they play the following Saturday, or how does it work with scheduling?
Well, they play a lot of evening games. So, you know, they play Friday nights and stuff like that. And obviously when their season starts is at a different time. So it's you know, they start in January, is it? I don't even follow rugby. I don't. It's not a sport that interests me. It doesn't clash at all. You know, it's never been an issue as far as I'm aware. Certainly since I've been at the club, it's never been an issue.
And your ground, I see here, it holds a little bit over 2,500. So you certainly have the capacity to move up in divisions. I mean, realistically, you know, most of the parks at the conference probably aren't any bigger than that.
Yeah, we haven't, like I say, we played Kings Lynn in the Super Playoff final last season, and we had a couple of thousand in then. You know, and it's not a big stadium by any means. It's, you know, we've got a couple of small stands, like sort of couch head type stands. We've got a small seated stand. Yeah, you know, the chairman's got plans. He's got plans, but obviously they need to be, you know, based on promotion, and so no pressure on me there, but
you know.
but no,
well, you actually mentioned something there that we should probably talk about, which was the Super Conference playoff, because my understanding is that under normal circumstances you would have been promoted last year, but something involving a team dropping out of a league, and then you had to play a team from another conference. Tell us how that happened, because I understand that was a really it didn't sound like a fair situation for what I heard. What exactly happened with that?
Well, basically, what it was, there was a restructure in how the leagues below the Conference North and South was going to be. And so because there was an extra, how can I just say, you need to be Carol Vorderman to understand how it worked. But basically there there was one team too many up for promotion, so they had to divide it up. And so Kings Lynn won their league playoff final, and we won our league playoff final. There had to be a super playoff final to see who would be promoted, because we had the highest points per game ratio. The game was played at ours at Warrington, and it was crazy. I still, when I look back on it, and I like to look through things, and I still look at things and think, why couldn't they have just done it a different way? Because we will go down as the only team who's won the league playoff final and not be promoted, because we beat South Shields away, which was an unbelievable performance and result.
There's something wrong with that statement when you say that, isn't there, Paul? There's something wrong with that. It doesn't sound
definitely
right.
It sounds like the way that you're taking it, though, is we've had a lot of the Accrington players on who were in the League Two playoffs and just barely got eliminated by a last-second goal. And they said that experience made them better down the line. And I think that's where it sounds like you're going with it, is that experience of getting that close is just going to make you know what to do more next time you get that opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of suffered a little bit of a hangover at the beginning of the season, and to be honest, for a big part, we were stuttering along this season, or the season that's been stopped. I keep saying it's this season because it still technically would be playing.
Yeah.
And we've kind of stuttered along, and the season's been stopped, and we find ourselves in third. And I'm not daft enough to look at the league and think South Shields won't win it, and we will. But South Shields should have won the league. But we should have been playing in the playoffs again, which would have been our third season, in the playoffs. But we were just getting ourselves going. We were just putting performances together. Players were more consistent. The team selection was more consistent because players were being more consistent. So it was, like it goes hand in hand. But, I'd like to think our experience of the previous season would have stood us in good stead. And the disappointment of, even though we did win the league playoff and not getting promotion, there was another opportunity for us to ultimately claim the promotion that we've been longing for. But like you say, it's something that really doesn't sound right. You win your league playoffs, but you're still in the same division. But we knew at the beginning of the season what the rules were, or we had an understanding. But it just was unfortunate that it wasn't us to win the Super playoffs. And you look at how well Kings Lynn have done in the Conference North, and they've been up near the top all season. And so that just, not that it works that way in football, but we certainly would have more than held our own.
Well, I think one of the things you said there too, that the word that's it was consistent with your team and your players, but I think also consistency at the management level with yourself. You being there for 4 years, I think 2016. You've got consistency yourself, and as we see at smaller clubs, consistency in the management and coaching position is so important. And as a result, your team is starting to, like you said, playoffs 3 years in a row. So, that speaks a lot to yourself and your style and what you've done with the club.
Yeah, I speak to players who I'm interested in signing, and I always say we try the best with everything we've got. We try and drain as much as we can out of everything we've got. Every last resource, we try and use it to its capacity, whether it be players, whether it be the groundsman, whether it be the training ground, whatever it is, we try and get as much as we can out of it, because you can't waste anything at these levels, because you haven't got the finances to do so. And I think I say it to players all the time. We do the best with what we've got, and it's not perfect. But I think when lads see how hard you try, I'd like to think it makes them do the same. And one thing I always say to them is, if we're not perfect, we don't claim to be, and if someone like Jose Mourinho can moan about a club like Man United not being right, then we've certainly got enough of an excuse as Warrington Town not being right, and so, but like I say, everything we're doing is going in the right direction. We're trying to build. The chairman's brilliant. He works around the clock. He's so supportive, and he's become a friend, and we speak every day, and we speak about everything to do with the club and other things too. And it's a good club. It's a good club, and for someone young and who maybe have done a career or has lost the way a little bit in league football and needs to restart, then we're a good place for that to happen. And even the likes of Scott Brown, who's had a great career, and his career's actually got better as he's got older. I know he'd be. I know he'd endorse us well for giving him that his mojo back, his spring and his step again towards the game. And like you say, we try our best with everything we've got, and that's all you can ask.
Yeah, and another key thing there is relationships. When you have good relationships, especially in a smaller club where the number of staff is obviously not as big as larger clubs, relationships with you and the chairman and with the players, it's so important that if you don't have that, you're not going to have any success at all. And I think that's another key ingredient to why you guys have done well.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I hear people saying, "Oh, you don't have to get on with people and stuff like that." You do, but there's only so far it'll take you. And I know, pros have come out in the past and said, "Oh no, we didn't speak off the pitch, or we didn't." There's an element of respect at our level. It's a bit different because. It's not about the money. It's about wanting to win, wanting to create something. And I think if you spoke to all our players, they'd tell you that. They'd tell you what we're trying to do because they bought into it. And we wouldn't be, as I said before, we wouldn't be in the playoff positions for the third year if they hadn't bought into it. Especially with this, a very, very similar squad as what we've had over the last few seasons. So. The relationships and the continuity and the togetherness breed that that momentum and that success that every manager craves for. That you want that continuity, that know of people, that way you find out and the relationships developing and knowing strengths and weaknesses and knowing what people can do and what they can't do, because that's massive when it comes to how you get results. Is not just about who can do what, it's who can't do things. And one thing I always say to the lads, you'll never hear me ask you to do something that I don't think you can do, or you'll never hear me ask you not play to your strengths, because ultimately I've signed players on the back of what they're good at, and I'll always ask them to do that.
I think that's something that we've mentioned quite a few times, is that sometimes the guys that make the best managers weren't necessarily guys that were superstar players. Because if you bring, I'll use somebody who's still playing just as an example, but say you have a Harry Kane, for instance, and you bring him in to be manager. Well, the guys playing under him aren't going to have the same ability that Harry Kane had.
Yeah.
Is that guy going to be able to accept that not every player could do that? What you're saying is, that in the seventh tier, your players are going to have limitations. So instead of trying to make your guys do things that they can't do, you're going to find what does a guy excel at. You're going to put him in that role. And that's why you get that continuity. I mean, that speaks volumes for you, because you're at a level where you have guys primarily on 1-year contracts. You have continuity. The other thing I'm hearing is you're 100% invested. I mean, you managed Warrington Town with the same commitment that if you were invested in, managing Man United. I mean, I could hear the commitment in your voice that you love this club, and like you said, that's why you're not watching Coronation Street in EastEnders. You're standing in the rain looking for that next guy because you know that if you're not standing in the rain, John Coleman's going to be there and get that guy before you.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't put my name to it and be any other way. And especially when you see how the chairman is, the chairman's. There's been many a time we've swept up the dressing rooms after the game, and not looking for plaudits for that, just doing it because it needs doing. We're there, so let's just get a box ticked and get it done, and save someone else doing it the next day. And I think if you have that way and that approach, then listen, I don't claim to be Pep Guardiola or even John Coleman for that matter. I do it my way, the way I see it, right, and wherever that leads me, or whatever successes I have, then that'll be down to me doing it how I believe, and I think if you stick to your own morals and principles and not try and replicate others, I think you're obviously your own person, and you should be that, whether it be playing, whether it be management or coaching or whatever you do. I'm a big believer in just be yourself.
Based on what we've talked about and the club and your involvement and your success there, would we expect to see a contract extension? Do you see yourself long term there, Paul?
When there was a bit of interest, a couple of years ago from Chester, from one of my previous clubs as a player, and the chairman put an extension to me. Then I've got a season left, or I've got a year left. Yeah, as I say, it's as long as I'm doing what I know I can do and what the team can do, then I know the chairman will back me, and he'll be alongside me. And for me, rightly or wrongly, some people will say I'm daft, but it's not about the contract and stuff like that. The chairman knows I'm ambitious, and I say to players, I don't want young lads to say, I don't want you coming to Warrington and saying, I want to be here forever. I want you to enjoy it, use it as a stepping stone, and get back playing at a bigger club in a better division, at a better standard and a bigger challenge. And because that's ultimately what I want, but I need to be successful to get there. And, the chairman knows I'm ambitious, and he's ambitious. And if we can do a bit together and be successful as to a degree we have been, then that all the rest of it comes with that. And he's as focused and as ambitious as I am, and that, so we're both singing off the same hymn sheet, and we like the players to be in the same line.
Well, all I can say is continued success, and on my behalf, and I'll let Phil say a couple words too, but I just want to thank you for your time today and the insight you gave us, and all the best to you in your personal life and your football life, and thanks again for sharing this time with us.
Thanks very much for having me, Tony. It's been nice to get out and talk football instead of talking about what I'm gonna have to teach the kids as some homeschooling, or there's only so many times. Only so many times you can paint a fence in this lockdown situation in the garden. That's for sure. And ours is well painted now. Put it that way.
Well, Paul, I mean, it has just been incredible having you on the show. And like I said, I mean, we've gone almost a full hour and a half now. So this is going to turn into a two-part episode. And, we're just happy that you've taken the time with us today, and that we have the opportunity to have you on. And we definitely will want to do it in the future. And, just the things that you've said, you mentioned Pep Guardiola and John Coleman earlier, which is, it's just interesting that those are the two names that you mentioned, because Andy Holt has gone on record specifically as saying that he wouldn't trade his manager, John Coleman, for Pep Guardiola. And we don't know your chairman, but based on what we're hearing here, I'd be willing to bet that your chairman wouldn't trade you up for John Coleman either, because the commitment that you have to your club is something special. And, just hearing your passion makes me want to go out and watch every Warrington Town game and just be your guys' biggest fan, because, we have no doubt that you're going to be having success with whatever you do, and like you said, being in a playoff position 3 years in a row. We're going to see you promoted soon, and we can't wait for it.
Oh, thanks very much. I think one of the reasons why our chairman, if you're asking that question about would he trade me for Coley, and the reason, one of the main reasons he'd say no is because Coley drinks a lot more than me. So it'd be astronomical. So I think that's one of the reasons why he wouldn't swap him.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that Coley stays at Accrington, because when they win, they get £1 a pint.
Well, that's it. And I bet you there's been a few lock-ins in Aki. With the wins that they've had, he's done a great job, and I'm made up for him and the club, and hopefully it continues.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will talk to you soon, Paul, and I will let you know as soon as we get these out here over the. Like I said, I'm going to cut it into to 2 40-minute parts and release it here over the next couple of days, and hearing your passion and your commitment to scouting the other teams and everything that you're doing at Warrington, it's just keep it up. We love it.
Yeah, all the best, Paul.
Thanks very much, fellas.
Cheers, Paul.
Take care. Cheers.
Take care.
Take care.